Hi, my name is Olajide Olagunju. I'm the author of the book, How to Resolve a Conflict, which I would like to share with you on the screen now. Okay, so how to resolve a conflict. This is the textbook for this lecture series you just joined. And the lecture series itself is titled How to Resolve a Conflict. And this is How to Resolve a Conflict Lecture 69. Welcome. Um, what we do is look at the book, read, and then have a discussion. Um, but in the meantime, please subscribe to this lecture channel. We'll be very grateful. Uh, in the lecture series, we are now in the last leg, um, looking at the 7 secrets of effective conflict resolution, which is the last chapter in the book, How to Resolve a Conflict. Uh, Let me read and then we'll have a discussion. It begins with a quote, and wisdom had built a house. She had in out her 7 pillars, unquote. That's from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 9:1. And I like it because it speaks to the topic of today's lecture, in the sense that we're also talking about 7, and the number is important, not for any astrological or reason, but just that it speaks to the system of conflict resolution. I strongly believe that conflict resolution is a science, which means that it is made up of systems, and that effective conflict resolution is made up of these elements, these 7 elements. Let me read and then we'll have a discussion. Introduction. The 7 secrets anchor all that we have discussed in previous chapters. I call them secrets because they were hitherto really considered as one holistic package in conflict resolution. At the same time, mastery and deployment of these 7 elements ensure and assure a durable conflict resolution. So that's it. I think that if we can master these 7 elements, effective conflict resolution, which we want to discuss now, and which pulls together all that we have been discussing, or most of what we have been discussing in terms of effective conflict resolution, we will be able to have a firmer grip or grasp of our mediation efforts. We'll be better mediators if we can understand the 7 elements that go that's come to play, in effective conflict resolution. So let me begin with secret number 1, and it's a personal philosophy of conflict. I read, in order to make a success of one's conflict resolution effort, it is helpful and indeed crucial to operate from a personal philosophy of conflict. A personal philosophy, a personal perception of what conflict means. This ensures a success at conflict resolution that is not only unique to the mediator, but also one that they can always repeat and duplicate in various conflict situations. So what is your philosophy of conflict? What is your philosophy of conflict? What does conflict mean to you? How do you perceive conflict? In order to develop a personal philosophy of conflict, let us look at 3 words: who, why, and what. Who are the people that you would see in conflict? Why do these people get into conflict? What is conflict? Who, why, what? We place the last question, what is conflict, last? Because if you know who engages in conflict and why they engage in conflict, you would better know what conflict means. You will be able to develop a rich perception of conflict. You would have a strong personal philosophy of conflict. Who are the people that you will see in conflict? If I were to ask you the question, who do you see in conflict? You would likely cite some or all of the following instances as people that could be in conflict: family members, couples, neighbors, friends, acquaintances, colleagues, communities, nations, employers and employees, tenants and landlords, service providers and clients, businesses and their customers, students and teachers. You could add to the above list of people that conflict. If I don't ask you to sit back and look closely at the parties in each and all of the instances, you will be able to come up with a word that describes people that engage in conflict. It's most likely going to be the word relationship. Relationship, or a similar word. What you would see if you step back from a conflict and examine the people in conflict is that people in conflict are people in relationship. Behind every conflict is a relationship between the parties in conflict. No one quarrels with strangers. So, in summary, the answer to the question, who do you see in conflict, is people in conflict. The relationship may not be apparent, but for there to be a conflict, there will be a relationship. We do not disagree if we had not agreed. We do not disengage if we had not engaged. We do not separate if we had never met, physically or otherwise. And agreement is a beautiful thing. Agreement is a beautiful thing. Engagement is a beautiful thing. Meeting is a beautiful thing. In short, a relationship is a beautiful thing. It is a thing of joy and celebration. Meeting is not of itself bad. Engaging with others is what brings out the best of our common heritage and humanity. So behind conflict, a phenomenon which people have wrongly come to see as negative is a positive thing: human interaction and human relationship. This gives conflict a new perspective, its true perspective. Conflict reveals relationship, which bets activity, movement, progress, and development. A deep awareness of the fact that parties to a conflict are people in relationship is the first major step towards developing a philosophy of conflict. And this awareness instantly affects the way we think about conflict. Why do people get into conflict? Having discovered that parties to a conflict are people in a relationship, we cannot move on. We can now, forgive me, we can now move on to understand why these people have conflict. In order to understand why people have conflict, we must go back to the concept of relationship. To understand why there is a conflict, we must first understand why there was a relationship in the first place. Because before the conflict, the relationship already existed. What was the purpose of the relationship in conflict? Relationships are need-based. That is to say, people get into relationships to meet a need. An easy example is a couple. The woman has needs that only her meeting, engaging, and relating with the man can meet, and vice versa. Their mutual and individual needs bring them together. Similarly, in every other relationship, one can rightly say that there's a need that the relationship is meeting. Having established that relationships exist to meet the needs of the individual parties in the relationship and in the conflict, we can more easily see the reason for conflict. Conflicts come when the needs of one or more of the parties in the relationship are no longer being met. Conflict protects unmet needs in relationships. A relationship that continues to meet the needs of parties to it cannot run into a conflict. I think we can stop there to have a discussion. The critical point I'm making in this first element of first bit of effective conflict resolution is that anytime a good mediator hears conflict, she or he immediately thinks of relationship. She knows instinctively that if there's a conflict, there must be a relationship. So, in managing or resolving a conflict, what we are doing is managing or resolving a relationship that is in conflict or that is challenged. The challenge to a relationship is what we call conflict. I will go on to make a more probably holistic definition, but just to note now that parties in conflict are parties in a relationship. Let me read more and then we discuss more. What then is conflict? We have determined that parties to a conflict are parties in a relationship. We have also determined that these parties use conflict to express unmet needs. We can now more easily answer the question, what is conflict? An answer to which will give us both a rich appreciation of what conflict is, as well as help us as individuals to understand the philosophy of conflict, and of course, to have the philosophy of conflict. From our findings so far, we can easily define conflict as a situation in which the needs of parties in a relationship are not being met. A conflict is a situation in which the needs of parties in a relationship are not being met. From the above analysis, we can see that conflict itself is not evil, but merely symptomatic. The parties are basically using it to tell one another that, quote, things have fallen apart, the center is no longer holding, unquote. Conflict is a warning signaling the collapse of the old relationship for being unable to meet the needs for which the relationship existed. Conflict is a signal for a new relationship. Some may want to argue that it could in fact be a signal to end all relationship. But the insurmountable challenge is that no one can exist without a relationship, without other people. Knowingly or unknowingly, there's no human being in the world that's outside of my life that is not related to me. I am compelled by my humanity to engage everybody else, consciously or otherwise, directly or indirectly. People relate with me whether they are near to me or far from me, whether I can see them or not. Relationship is the burden of my humanity, of your humanity, of all humanity. And when they are people whom I have known intimately or loosely, then I must see conflict with them as a need for a conscious rearrangement of the way we relate. So that's conflict. Conflict is simply a situation of unmet needs in a relationship. And a good mediator must hold on to that. That is the philosophy of conflict. Unmet needs in a relationship. Unmet needs. As long as needs are being met, there will not be conflict. When people stop meeting each other's needs in their relationship, then we talk of conflict. I'd like to stop there today. This chewing on what you just heard. And if you have comments, post them. Please subscribe to this channel and see if you can get a copy of the book that we are relying on for this lecture series, titled How to Resolve a Conflict. And very importantly, begin to apply or continue to apply what you are learning in these lectures with in your life and the life of others, so that your conflicts can be more effectively managed. Thank you, and see you in lecture 70 tomorrow.